Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of our Community Cares. I'm Daniella Levine Cava, County Commissioner, District 8, and we've been bringing you information about how we can cope with this COVID-19 era for the last 7 weeks. And we've had dozens of speakers, we've had thousands of viewers, and all of our previous shows are archived on the Facebook page for Daniella Levine Cava, County Commissioner, and we hope you'll check back because we have had an amazing run of speakers. We've spoken to Dr. Erin Kobetz with the University of Miami, who's running our surveillance study, checking for antibodies in the population. By the way, it's about 6%. We've had our Agricultural Commissioner, Nikki Freed, talking about consumer protection and what we're doing to help our farmers. We've had Rick Beasley with CareerSource South Florida talking about the challenges for unemployment and reemployment in this era. Mental health we've discussed, landlord-tenant evictions, unemployment compensation, and so many other important topics. So we hope you'll check it out. And today we're really thrilled to bring you another episode, today focused on the census. Now remember, once upon a time, we were all focused on getting our census done by April 1. Otherwise known as April Fool's Day, but the fool was on us because we had COVID instead, and everything got put on hold. The deadline was pushed back, but it is more important than ever to fully count everybody here in our community because federal dollars, representation at the federal and state governments, all depend upon being counted, and we all count. No matter our circumstance, no matter our status, no matter our immigration status, we all count. And that information is confidential and it's very short, fewer than 5 minutes to fill out the census. So we want everyone to be counted. And today we have 2 outstanding representatives to tell us more about the census and what we can all do to participate actively in accomplishing this all-important census, now with a new deadline, Halloween. But we don't want it to be trick or treat. We want it to definitely succeed. So with your help, you're going to learn how. We'll be joined today by Juanita Mainster, a longtime friend. Juanita and I go way, way back, and her wonderful husband, Steve, unfortunately, who passed away, and we named a street after him in District 8, a great advocate for farm workers and others who are struggling in our community and work so hard. She's the South Florida Partnership Coordinator for the United States Census Bureau, and she's worked on the census for many years. Jerry Bell is Miami-Dade County's Assistant Director for Planning. He's part of the Regulatory and Economic Resources Department, and he is the leader in planning efforts in Miami-Dade County. So welcome, Juanita, welcome, Jerry.
Thank you.
We'll start. Very good to see you. We're not going to see Juanita, sadly. We're going to see Jerry and his smiling face, but Juanita had some technical difficulties. We all know about those, so she will be with us in voice only. So please, Juanita, tell us, why is this 2020 census so important, and how will it shape our future?
Well, the 2020 census will provide a snapshot of our nation, who we are, where we live, and so much more. So each decade, the results of this once a decade count determines the number of seats each state has in the House of Representatives. They are also used to draw congressional and state legislative districts. Over the next decade, lawmakers, business owners, and many others will use the 2020 census data to make critical decisions that will help our community. The results will show where communities need, for example, new schools, new clinics, new roads, and more services for families, older adults, and children. So it affects everyone. So these results will also inform how hundreds of billions of dollars in federal funding are allocated to more than 100 programs, including Medicaid, Head Start, block grants for community mental health services, and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program that are known as SNAP.
Wow, that's really something, Juanita. you clearly communicate how important this is. And now when so many people are turning to those programs, maybe who didn't turn to some of them before, all the more essential that we get our fair share. And we can only get our fair share if we are counted. Thank you for that. Let me remind our listeners that we are taking questions and comments. So please post those in the Facebook. It's not called chat, but just post it in Facebook, and we will be sure to do our very best to get to your questions and comments. So now we have the coronavirus pandemic. Nothing that any of us could have ever anticipated. So please tell us a little bit about how that has affected the census and also the timeline.
Well, in light of this COVID-19 outbreak, the Census Bureau has adjusted the 2020 operations, in order to protect the public, our employees that would be out in the field. So there are different things we are adhering to, to protect and health, safety of our public and employees, and we implement the guidance is set forth at the federal, state, and local levels, regarding COVID-19, to ensure that we can actually have a complete and accurate count of all our communities during these hard times.
Excellent. And what is the current national response rate? And what is our current local response rate?
All right. So for the county, as of yesterday, we were at let's see, what is this? We were at 52%, and the national rate is at 57.7%.
Oh, that's not good. We're not even up to the national. Oh, can you tell us what?
We have a little bit of work here to do yet, but I think that we're working towards that. I believe that our with great assistance from our task force in the county and all of the partners that we have developed in Miami-Dade County. I think that is going to make a big difference, especially right now, where people are staying at home. And we want to encourage the people that are staying at home to go online and respond to the 2020 census.
So they could go right now and do it. Just go right.
Yes.
While we're talking. What would be the website? How would they go about it?
So that you can go to my2020census.gov, or you can also call 844-330-2020. And if you're not comfortable with going online, or you don't have access, or you don't have the connectivity like Nia and I like at times, you can call. You can call that 844 number.
Great, and we'll post that in our.
Yes. If by chance you received a questionnaire, because there will be some areas that received questionnaires, you want to respond to that. Complete it and mail it back. Okay,
so if it came in the mail, please do go ahead and use that. But otherwise, my2020census.gov, G-O-V, or 844-330-2020. Very good.
That is correct.
So is everybody expected to fill one out? Who's responsible to fill one out?
Every household in our community, in our county, as a matter of fact, everybody in our nation should be responding to the 2020 census, again, via internet, phone, or returning the questionnaire that they received. We should count every individual in that household that was present on April 1st of 2020. That includes children, babies. If you have relatives that live with you, if you sublet somebody in your home, we want everybody counted.
Excellent point. Excellent. So if it's the student home from college, or the tenant who rents the back room, all of those are part of the household, and we want to count absolutely everybody.
In our community, we have multi-family units. where we have not only multifamily by units, but we have multiple families living in a specific address. So we want to make sure that we count everybody.
Right. And very good. Well, let's go ahead and turn to Jerry, and we'll come back with questions later. Thank you so much, Juanita. Jerry,
welcome.
tell us about the task force. There was a task force created. When was it initiated? What was its role and who served?
Sure, thank you. So back in January of 2019, the Board of County Commissioners established the 2020 Census Task Force. And the express purpose of this task force was really to ensure maximum participation in the 2020 census. And what we did is to do so, was to be through strategies such as identifying our hard to reach populations. And these are communities and populations who are really more likely than others who are to be undercounted in the census. The task force was charged with helping us to develop best practices and strategies to engage with these communities to help ensure their participation. The task force was charged with identifying tools and resources to bolster our county's census efforts. And the real outcome of this effort was an action plan. And the action plan is really geared toward getting us as close to 100% participation as possible. So the task force had 35 members. It was chaired by Commissioner Esteban Bovo and vice chair by School Board member Steve Gallen. We had representatives from various agencies and organizations, and the representation was really balanced to kind of recognize the awesome diversity of our Miami-Dade County community, and also to include organizations that serve those undercounted population groups. So I was very honored to serve on this task force as Miami-Dade County Planning's representative, and we met about 8 times between April and January. And we successfully completed a comprehensive action plan that serves as our blueprint for really maximizing our participation in Miami-Dade County.
Excellent. And I know there were some grants given to community groups to assist and other things. Obviously, there's been a lot of information distributed, flyers and the like. But can you tell a little bit about how the community groups were engaged in this process?
Sure. Well, basically, by really aggressively implementing those strategies that we had in the task force's action plan. For example, we established a speakers bureau that consisted of about 100 trained staff members from various county departments. And that speakers bureau went to various groups. We gave presentations. We staffed tables at over 280 community events. We made about 15,000 engagements on the census between July 2019 and March 2020. And then, of course, like everything else, COVID happened. So that really curtailed the speakers bureau and cut off many of the events that we had planned, as well as our ability to maintain a physical presence. So since that time, we've really been doubling down on social media efforts. And so in March and April, we estimate that our social media messaging had a reach of about 1.9 million, with over 500,000 comments, likes, shares, and clicks. So also through the staff working group, our county departments implemented customized outreach efforts. We displayed promotional materials at our departments. We did outreach that are very targeted to our clients and constituencies. And we also, as you mentioned, Commissioner, the county's provided $350,000 in grants to 23 community organizations. And this is really to implement very specific outreach efforts to get to those hard to reach populations. And we've also developed collateral marketing material and provided very specific technical assistance to these groups, organizations, our municipalities, and our businesses. What we really want to do is support them in their own census outreach efforts. They're really our ambassadors. They're the ones who are helping us carry it out. As part of this, we're able to provide very close to real-time information and interactive maps to these groups on response rates and hard-to-reach populations to our community partners and stakeholders, which is really able to help us customize their efforts. We're able to really see where response rates may be lagging and go out and reach them. And all of these resources, including those marketing materials and action plan, informational tools, they're accessible to anyone at the county census website, which is very easily reached. You just Google or in your search engine, type Miami-Dade County 2020 Census, and that should pull up a link to that page. Or you could also just directly go to www.miamidade.gov/2020 Census.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jerry. And in my district, District 8, we've got 3 municipalities, and then there's Pinecrest to the north. So there's a little friendly competition going on. Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay, and Cutler Bay. So far, Palmetto Bay is in the lead, and they have in excess of 70% participation. So we heard earlier from Juanita that countywide we're at 52%. So we can see that when you really concentrate and focus, you can do do really well. And of course, those cities are helping. We've got
Sure.
34 cities, but we also have quite a bit of the county that's unincorporated, and we need to work with our community groups. Okay, so what about people's fear? Some people might be fearful that they're disclosing personal information. Can you tell us what kind of information is there and who gets to see it?
Sure, sure. Well, first off, very loud and clear, there is no citizenship question on the census. There's no question that requires or asks anyone to disclose their residency status. So that's a very important thing to put out there at the front. And in addition to immigration and residency status, there are other factors which can inhibit participation in the census. And that includes a general mistrust of government and how the census information might be used, as well as, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, there could be people who are living in housing units that may not fully comply with local code requirements or occupancy requirements. So the real important message for these households is that unequivocally, all information provided in their census response is completely confidential. It can only be used for statistical purposes. It cannot, under any circumstances, be used for anything else, including law enforcement, local code enforcement actions, or any immigration action. All Census Bureau employees have to swear to a lifetime oath to protect respondent data. It's a felony for any Census Bureau employee to disclose confidential census information during or after their employment. And not even a presidential order could be used to release census information. And all the information collected is protected for 72 years. So it's an extremely confidential process, and the information is only used for statistical purposes to help us at all levels of government better deliver services to all of the residents.
Excellent, excellent. And of course, our county commission was very adamant. We voted unanimously to endorse no citizenship question being included back in the days when that was proposed by the federal government. And we were successful in advocating to eliminate that for fears that people might have, even though the information is clearly maintained confidentially. Great. Well, let's turn back to you, Juanita. You've been at this for how long? How many years have you worked on the census?
Oh, this is my 4th decennial census.
Oh,
So,
excuse me. Does that mean 40 years?
that means that my first tour with the U.S. Census Bureau was in 1988.
Oh my, isn't that something? Well, so you've seen it go through all kinds of twists and turns and changes. How would you compare this year's census to others?
Well, obviously, we have this pandemic that is something that we have never experienced before in a decennial count. So that in itself, is making some difference, where for the first time we have had to, push back our dates to ensure that, people are protected, employees as well as the public. But one of the things that's come out of this is that we have now learned to use virtual communication.
Yes.
And the fact that this decennial is the first decennial where we have the ability to respond online.
Right.
And so that right, especially for the times that we're in, that has helped quite a bit.
Sure. Well, and you've seen the changes over the years, adding multiple languages.
Yeah.
It's obviously come a long, long way. This year, there was a question about country of origin, which I know was a little challenging for me personally, trying to understand how a person's ancestors first came to this country, if not Native American, right? What are we finding from that question? Do you know, or any insights you can give us?
Well, in terms of identifying your origin, your country of origin, again, remember that this is self-response. Okay, so in the past, there were groups that wanted to see, their ancestry identified, and so this time, one of the things that folks have challenges out there with is how to answer that. So the best way to do it is, when we have partners that are both online and over the phone are teaching their communities how to respond to that question. So it's getting people informed of, on this line, question such and such. On this line, this is what you want to put in. So if I am Colombian, Venezuelan, Mexican, any of the countries, that where we have immigrants in our community, you write in your country of origin.
But it could be many generations back. I mean,
Yes.
for example, it wasn't my grandparents were all born in this country, but my great grandparents came as children. So that goes back many, many, many years. But nonetheless, I had the opportunity to identify those countries of origin. So, and of course, the other thing is that people are a blend of so many things. So like you say, you have to choose. You can't, you have to put out your primary association or affiliation. Yeah. What about
self-identification?
Self-identification. Also, another interesting question I found was interest in housing. Was it the house owned? Was it rented? Was that on previous census questions?
Yes. Remember that this is a housing and population count.
Okay. So so I know somebody told me that they were surprised by that, and of course we're not looking for details about it, but just the status, the different kinds of ways that people are residing. Okay, good. Well, Jerry, if we could go back to you, what particular challenges did the task force encounter, and how did they deal with that?
Well, I think the real challenge for us was really to figure out how to best reach those, what I called hard to count populations. And those are, and really the best way that we found to do it is to really engage and work with what we call trusted voices. And those are organizations and individuals who actually work and live within those communities. And that's much more effective than, say, me going out and trying to communicate the message, to really work with and engage with those groups. So really what we did in the task force is we tried to identify the factors that make it less likely for an individual or a household to respond to the census. And some of those factors are things like low literacy skills, lack of internet access, high mobility or transiency, the homeless population, those with undocumented immigration status, people and groups who just generally have a distrust of government, and also persons with disability. So it's really how to best reach those persons, and that was really one of the primary tasks of that task force. So from past censuses and the resulting population and demographic research we've been able to do, we can identify the areas of the county that have a concentration of those hard to count populations. And then we can identify the leaders and organizations in those communities, the trusted voices, to help us with outreach for those groups. And as I stated earlier, we have a lot of resources that we can offer to those organizations, including the grants and marketing materials. So that was really the challenge of the task force, was to come up with a meaningful way to successfully engage with those communities.
Right. And do we know, I mean, now that we're at 52%, first of all, we know that people who have not participated are going to get something in the mail. So we're going to continue our efforts to reach out to those people. And now the county, for example, is distributing those census forms in some places, and I've been urging this, when people go to pick up food, those that need free food distribution, or if they go to the library to pick up some of the forms for other forms of assistance, that we would have the census forms available. So what are some of the other things that we can do now to make sure that nobody is left out?
Right. Well, it was very, I'm very glad that you did mention what has been done, particularly since the coronavirus situation, in terms of going out to the libraries and where they're handing out the unemployment forms and handing out the census information there, or at our parks handing out some of the, where they're doing food distribution. Initially, the library was a really important distribution point for getting out the information, and unfortunately they've been, as you know, closed or not able to operate. So we've had to kind of modify the plans and really try to target it along with those efforts. We've also really at the county just been engaged in a very robust marketing effort in order to get the word out, and trying to get the word out to as many people as we can in the current situation. So we've done, as I said, a very intense social media presence, YouTube ads, TV, radio, and social media PSAs, online banners, just a very extensive marketing campaign. On a weekly basis, we're providing our partners with information about response rates, the maps, the collateral material. We're doing Skype interviews, conference calls, all forms of outreach. We've really had to change our strategy in terms of being much more reliant on, of course, the the technology and remote ways to access. But that's really been kind of the effort that we've been taking to just get the word out and get as many people as possible.
Okay, great. All right. Well, let's just make sure that everybody who's listening knows that you can be a good neighbor. You can make sure you can do your own census, and you can reach out to your friends and neighbors and colleagues, make sure that they are counted. We all need to be counted for the benefit of this entire community. So as we wrap up the show, Jerry, do you have any final words?
Well, I just want to say that you had mentioned Palmetto Bay is winning in your district. It's actually winning in the whole county. It's got the highest response rate.
Okay, whoa, and I live in Palmetto Bay.
Yes, so you all are doing a great job. My hometown, where I live, Miami Shores is second, but you guys are first. So, so very good.
Well,
Good
what
effort.
they're doing here is the losing mayor has to buy the other two mayors dinner. So just saying, we're getting creative.
That's
All
effective.
right.
Yes.
How about you, Juanita? How are you? Any last thoughts?
Yes, just to remind everybody, as you did earlier, that everybody needs to be counted. Everybody living in a household needs to be counted. And the best response is a self-response. Go online, respond to your census questionnaire. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Juanita. And I'm thinking that we're told that wearing masks is being a good neighbor. Wearing a mask is for your own protection, but it's really also essentially for the protection of others. Filling out the census is not just about you. It's important that you think about others, because your getting counted helps all of us by making sure we get our fair share in money from the federal government and representation and services like Juanita named at the beginning. So again, thank you so much, Juanita and Jerry. You are true servants to the community. We are so grateful for your efforts. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to let you know, we have stopped our every Monday, Wednesday programming. We're going to fewer programs, but we're trying to have a big impact with them. So please join us next Wednesday, May 13th. We will be talking with representatives from the business community. Today, Mayor Jimenez announced that he'll be opening up some businesses, non-essential businesses, starting on May 18th. It's not yet known which ones, but we want to be at the forefront of talking to you about what we can expect. And we are going to bring on some of our business partners to talk about their level of preparedness and to answer your questions. So please join us to learn more about how we can responsibly reopen and recover from the coronavirus that will be with us for a while. That will be next May 13th at 4 p.m. Please follow us on Facebook. It's Commissioner Cava, or Twitter and Instagram at DL Cava. And have a good night. Have a great weekend. Get out and enjoy the beautiful weather. Be strong, be safe, and be kind. Good night, everyone.